Hello, everyone, and happy Friday. I'm taping this on a Friday, and so if it's not a Friday for you, happy Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever day it is that you're watching. Welcome to my story time. My name is Donna Bassette, and I just want to share with you for a minute why I'm doing these adult story time. It's because I'm an author and my husband and I are authors, and so when we're having conversations, I always come up with a story to talk about the point or to make the point even stronger. And so he said, you have so many stories, Donna. Why don't you share some of those with the public and maybe help somebody? And so that's what I'm doing. I have my little fun Friday story times. And today I'm actually going to be using my daughter and myself as the main folks for the story time. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So today we're going to be talking about stop looking around and see. Stop looking around and see. So that's the topic of our story today. So the first thing that I want to share with you guys is a challenge that I received recently on Facebook, where there was a bunch of number 9s, and the challenge was to find one single number 8 in this whole sea of 9s in a matter of seconds. And in there, the number 9s were so tiny. And so I'm sure a lot of people looked at it and they were looking all through the number 9s and maybe even going one line at a time or something like that. So when I get those kinds of challenges, I usually find them in a matter of seconds because I never look for the number 8. And I never look really at the number 9s. What I look for is the pattern. Number 9s look a certain way. So if I glance over it lightly, I can see where the pattern changes. And soon as the pattern changes a little bit, there's the number 8. It jumps right out at me. And so I want you to keep in mind that pattern that I'm talking about. Keep it in mind because we're going to talk about it a little bit towards the end of the story. So again, we're talking about stop looking and see. So my daughter, Dina, was about 7.5, and her little brother was about 5. And like any normal household, it was time for them to start doing chores. And one of their chores was to clean up the rooms. Nothing unusual, nothing special, just clean your room. So I sent her brother, Dina's brother, in there to clean his room. I sent her in her room to get it cleaned. And so about 20 minutes passed, and I went to check to see how they were doing with their rooms. And so when I looked at Dina's room, she said she was done. I was like, okay, let's check it out. She had dirty little socks creeping out from under her bed along with play clothes. She had crayons that had fallen out of the crayon box onto my wood floor, just waiting for somebody to grind it into my wood floor and give me another job to do, scraping crayon out of the cracks of my wood. She had a little doll who used to have silky hair, but now the hair is a bag of tangles. It's half naked and a couple of barrettes just hanging out of it, laying over on the floor someplace. And she had some crap on her bed. And I'm like, Dina, this room is not clean. And so she was like looking around, and she's looking around, and she's looking around, and she can't see anything. And I was like, do you see this on your bed? And so she says, oh, okay. And so she takes that and she puts it up. And then I point to something else that she left. So she takes that and she picks it up. I'm like, Dina, I am not going to stand here and tell you every single thing to do. You have got to stop looking all over the place and just see what it is that you need to do. I shouldn't have to stand here, and I'm not going to clean up after you the rest of my life. So you better get it together. I left her, said, finish cleaning up this room. And I went to go check on her brother, who was 5. When I went to his room, he had put his dirty clothes in his dirty clothes hamper. He had picked up all of his toys and put them in the toy box. He had a car bed at the time, so he had climbed in his car bed, tucked his little covers all around, and put his pillow up. And he even straightened up his little rug that goes on the side of his bed. And when I went in there, I said, "Oh, Mario, this is really great." And we didn't give allowance in our home for doing what you're supposed to do. So we just gave, and nothing against people who give allowance. We just didn't give allowance. And so his reward for doing a good job was a big, big hug. And I told him, "Good job." I said, "Good job, Mario." And I gave him the biggest hug, and I gave him a kiss. I said, "You can go out and play." And believe it or not, he looked forward to those hugs each and every time he cleaned his room and to hear "good job." So he went out to play, and then I went back to check on Dina. So meanwhile, back at the ranch, Dina says she's done. I was like, "Okay, let me take a look." Same little half-naked doll sitting over in the corner. Same little stinky socks coming from under the bed. Same little crayons sitting on the floor. I'm like, "What did you do? You've been in here for another 20 minutes. And so she's looking around and looking around and looking around. Can't see nothing. I'm like, "Okay, Dina, I tell you what. I'm not going to tell you another thing, and I'm not going to clean up this room for you. You are going to stay in this room until you figure it out and you see what has to be done on your own." And I said, "I don't care how long it takes. You may never come out of this room again." And I closed the door, went downstairs, started cooking or whatever I had to do as the woman of the house. So, long story short, about an hour and a half into this whole episode, Dina comes downstairs, and I'm like, "Okay, did you finish everything you came to give me?" And my husband comes downstairs after her, and he said, "No, I let her out." I'm like, "You did what?" He's like, "Well, she wasn't going to figure it out." And so he let her out of the room. I was like, "Okay, you let her off the hook, and now where are we going to be with this lesson?" Long story short, she was the clutter queen until the day she left my house to go away to college. She never, ever figured it out because she never learned that lesson on how to stop looking all over the place and just see. So with that, I'm going to tell you a little bit more story about looking around and not seeing things. I'm an author, right? And so I had only one book. I have 3 books now. But at the time, I only had one book. This was my book. This is the middle school adventure book. It's called By Way of Egypt. And I wanted this book to be a film. So I wanted a book to film project. So I went to the African American Film Festival. And at the time, the film festival was in Miami. They traveled to different states. So they were in Miami. And Robert Townsend, who is an actor, director, very talented individual, was giving a class. So I told my husband before we went down there, I says, "Listen, I'm going to go to Miami. And it's at the right time. I had a triathlon coming up. And I said, I can go to this class. I can fly back. And then the next day, I'll just do the triathlon. And I don't care if it's crunch. I won't get sick. I'll just take all kinds of like vitamin C and things." And so we went to this class, and I told him, I said, "I'm going to introduce myself to Robert Townsend. I'm going to make my book to film pitch, and he's going to take me under his wing. I don't care who else is at that class." And my husband was like, "Donna, have you ever thought about maybe there's going to be like a ton of people there, and maybe your stuff isn't going to be as important, or maybe not so much as important, but stand out as much, or you don't have as much skills as maybe some of the other people are going to have to do pitches, or maybe he'll like something else. He's only going to pick one person. What if it's not you?" And I said, "We're not talking about that. He's going to pick me, and I'm going to pitch this book, and it's going to become a film with Robert Townsend, and that's it. We're getting on this plane, and we're going to Florida, and that's what's going to happen." So I went to Florida, went there. I did get to meet Robert Townsend in person. I stood there, talked to him, showed him my book, and he actually smiled and talked back, and he seemed to like it. The problem is, there were about 500 people in that class. So we sat down, and he said, "Listen, I need you guys to look around the room. And he said, there's about 500 of you, and there's one of me. So the chances of me taking all of you under my wing is 0. Why did he say that? 0. My husband told me that at first, but I didn't listen. I was hell-bent on getting under Robert Townsend's arm, mentorship, whatever. So he said to us something very profound, is what I took away from that class. He said, really look around the class. There's actors, there's filmmakers, there's directors, there's lighting people, there's all kinds of talent in this room. If you would just look around and see and start talking to people, whatever it is you're trying to do, the folks you need to do it with, and to give birth to whatever it is you're trying to give birth to, is right here, and you're looking past them and you're looking up here at me. But really, if you look to your left and you look to your right, you'll see that they're right there. I was doing the same thing Dina was doing. I was looking way over here when really stuff was right in front of me. And I told this story to a friend of mine, and they said, boy, I think if I were you, I would have been really pissed off and disappointed. And I said, actually, I was appreciative that he said that we have everything we need. Because if you think of life as a staircase, you've got step number 1, you got step number 2, and of course at the top of the staircase may be step number 12 or 16 or whatever flight you're going to. But if you think about it, you can't get to step number 12 if there was no step number 1. Because step number 1 supports step number 2, which is attached to step number 3, which helps step number 4 stay level till you get all the way to step number 12. So occasionally, you can skip a few steps. You may be on step number 3, and you take a real big step, and you can get to step number 5. But you can't get to step number 12 unless you start somewhere on the bottom, because step number 12 doesn't hang there all by itself. It needs support. And so is it with life. Start where you are. Stop making excuses that you don't have things around you, that you don't have the support that you need. Put on your thinking cap. It's right around you. Stop looking around and see. You've got the internet. You've got YouTube. You've got friends who know people who know people who know people. Start talking about what it is you want to do. I don't care if you want to be a chef, if you want to be an astronaut. I don't care what it is, what school you want to go to, whatever kind of career you want to have. Start reading about it. Start talking to people and say, listen, I'm looking for somebody who does this, that, or the other thing. And just put the word out. You will be surprised at what comes back to you when you stop making excuses. Start talking it up. The universe will answer you. God will answer you. Your angels, your ancestors will answer you. They'll start sending things your way. Just like with Dina, don't look past them. Look at them. The other thing to note is that sometimes we assume that other people have it easier than we do. And so we think, oh, they were overnight success. Somebody just came up and swooped them up. And that's not the case. Just like with the staircase, you'll find that they've been working on that for a very, very long time. Even Michael Jackson, who seemed to be doing very well when he was 10 years old, he'd been at it since he was 3. Right? So he had 7 years under his belt. And you'll find that with most overnight successes, they're years in the making. And so they had to take those steps. Beyonce had been working at it for the longest. She wasn't an overnight success. Anybody who you really read about, they're not overnight successes. And so don't become jealous or envious or think that they had it easy. They've got to put the work in, just like each and every one of us. The rules apply to everyone. So be a student of your craft, whatever it is you like to do, and keep at it. Don't give up. And occasionally, you might be able to skip a step or two. And then look at the patterns, like in the number 9s and the number 8s. If there's things that you want to do, start researching that thing. Find out who's doing it and who's doing it successfully, and what were the patterns for all of the people who did it successfully. And follow those patterns. Maybe they went to certain schools. Maybe they read certain books. Maybe they had certain rituals. What were the patterns to the things that you want to do? And then you copy those patterns. And be appreciative also of the feedback and the direction you get, even if it's not exactly what you want to hear. Don't look past that advice. Consider it, think about it, and see how it can be used, because people don't have to tell you anything. They don't owe you anything. The fact that they thought about you at all is a blessing. So at least think about it, consider it. So that's my story for today. I hope that you actually got something out of it. If you did, I'd love for you to share this story, pass it along. If you want to know more about me or be able to purchase my books, I am at DawsonTwins.com, where you can purchase my books. I have a middle school book, as I showed you. This is the first book that I've written. This is a chapter book, and it is about Egypt, where 2 girls go back into time, and it teaches culture, family values, and it's an adventure book, so they learn about history in an action-packed format. The second book that I wrote is for primary school. And this book actually teaches tolerance, self-acceptance, and just being kind. And in a world today, this is so needed in our community and around the world. So this book is called Magic Door to Egypt and is appropriate for 2nd through 5th graders. And then my last book, which I really think is sweet, is my ABC book, which is called ABCD Egypt. And each page in here is hand painted. My illustrator did an absolutely fabulous job. It is all using things that are in Egypt. And so this is a soft cover. It's a board book, but the outside is padded. So again, you can find those on DawsonTwins.com. I will be sharing these adult story times, hopefully every Friday or every other Friday. So look for those. You can follow us on Bassette, my family of companies, on BassetteSolutions.com. You can also go to Bassette Solutions at pretty much any of the social media as well. So until we see each other again, this is Donna Bassette. I'm simply saying, stay strong, seek knowledge, speak truth, and most of all, be of service to someone else, especially those less fortunate than yourself. Be blessed now. Bye-bye.